Hi guys. So the latest migration numbers from Stats New Zealand came out yesterday, and there is some good news and some bad news. Now there is a link in the description to this data. So the good news is that the total net migration is down to 14,800 people in the year ending May 2025. Unfortunately, this number is only lower this time because of the high number of young, incredible Kiwis who are leaving to have a chance at a decent life elsewhere. Now, I'm still finding it hard to believe, guys, that so many Kiwis are finding it hard to get any sort of meaningful work at the same time that Luxon is letting in 114,500 people into the country. But I suppose he must know what he's doing, eh? Just like Jacinda knew what she was doing. So it says here that New Zealand was the largest group of arrivals at approximately 24,900 people, and here that New Zealand was the largest group of departures at approximately 71,200 people. Now that number depresses me, guys. That's 71,200 Kiwis leaving New Zealand. And then you can see what countries made up the most arrivals and the most departures. So if you look at these numbers, they're very interesting. And it's also personally interesting for me to see more whinging Poms actually leaving New Zealand than arriving. I'd love to know if they're actually going back to the UK or if they're going to Australia. But New Zealand sure is changing fast, guys, I have to say. I think when you see it in chart form, it strikes home a bit harder just how many Kiwis are leaving New Zealand, and I can't stress how sad this is for me to see. I love New Zealand and I love Kiwis, and I love the old Kiwi free will mentality, but that seems to be dying out nowadays, and that is so sad. If the government could just take its foot off the immigration accelerator for just a while and let Kiwis find jobs and get trained for jobs, then maybe you would not have so many Kiwis leaving. Less migration would also be less food for the housing Ponzi, and rent and house prices will come down. And this would also stop young Kiwis leaving, guys. If we look at realestate.co.nz's latest rental data release, then we can see that rents are still far too high for a low-wage economy like New Zealand. Just look at that, $698 per week on average in Auckland. Come on, you are having an absolute laugh, surely. It's not the tenant's fault that you paid too much for that Soviet-style gulag-looking terrace box in Papatoetoe. That was your mistake. Now either drop the rent 50% or sell up and just move on. Now it does look like rents are dropping a bit, but it's far too slow a drop when you consider how many more listings are being put on the market. And so many of these houses going on the rental market are people who wanted to sell at COVID peak prices but were unable to, and are now trying to get a tenant. It is hilarious, really. For anyone who understands the principles of supply and demand, just think forward 2 months. In September, the number of for sale listings always starts to go up. Imagine when loads of these desperados can't rent out their shoeboxes and start piling them back on for sale. Now, it's not looking good for the over leverage when you think about it, is it? Immigration's going down. Interest rates have just stayed the same, and they might not go down anymore, or they might even go up, who knows? Number of rentals are going up. Rent prices are going down. Mortgagee sales are going up. Each year in September, the number of listings start to go up again. And I would imagine this year that this might even start to happen a bit earlier, when the over-leveraged realise that they need to try and get ahead of the pack before the pack gets too big. A few months back at the peak, we were so close to having 50,000 listings on TradeMe. Today, there are 43,171. Which are still decade highs for this time of year. But lots of listings were taken off for sale waiting for spring, and many were put onto the rental market like we said. The real estate agents are trying to pretend that everything's rosy, guys, but supply and demand says otherwise. If you're looking for a property at the minute, then can I suggest that you drive a very hard bargain, guys? And if you're lucky enough to find an over-leveraged investor who's trying to sell that extra house that they didn't need but greedily bought in 2021, then remember how much they pushed house prices up during COVID, knowing that they were pushing young Kiwis out of home ownership, which eventually drove those same young Kiwis to move to Australia. Then be sure to drive the hardest, most serious bargain that you've ever driven. These greed merchants need to learn the hard way, so they refrain from being so selfish ever again. Now, house prices are too high all over New Zealand, and that's obvious for all to see. And they are especially too high in the regions. So I'll be watching as new listings start piling back on over the next few weeks, guys. And I can assure you that things are going to get very interesting. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one. Cheers for that.